Good morning, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. A little background on the company I work with, myself. I'll get into that first, and then we'll kind of dive into the topic for the day. A native of Troy, Ohio. Didn't grow up there, grew up in Northeast Ohio, but I live in Troy now. Past life before becoming a trainer, coach of sales, leadership, and customer service teams, I was in the downstream energy business as an executive, leading multiple sales teams, operations teams, $300 million companies up to $9 billion companies. So got a little bit of a mix on all kinds of different facets. I had sales teams from 3 people up to 30 people, and operations teams up to 250 people. So that's a little bit of where I came from before starting down this road of coaching, mentoring, training people in the sales, customer service, and leadership world. The Ruby Group is a franchise of Sandler Training. Sandler Training is the largest sales organization in the world from a training aspect. We're kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody really knows about for the most part. And we aren't known about because we are all franchises. And I work for the second largest franchise out of Ohio. We cover basically the whole Ohio area. So basically how I like to kick these things off and get going. I know there's a lot of people on here, but if you guys can do me a great favor, I think we've all kind of gotten used to this whole Zoom thing. We've been doing it for over a year now. I like to make these things a lot more interactive. I do not like to sit up here for the next hour and talk. So if you were really hoping for me to sit here and talk the whole rest of the time, it's not going to happen. I want some interaction. If you could turn your cameras on for me, that would be great. Maybe let's just go around the room real quick. Introduce yourself, who you're with, and maybe something you want to get out of today.
I'll start.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm Mike Judy. I'm with the Miami Valley Today newspaper. I am a multimedia sales specialist and just wanting to learn more about how to grow our newspaper's online presence and being able to market my customers through various means, social media, Google, all that. So.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Bill Furay. I'm with Primerica Financial Services. Do a lot of interacting. I'm not a big virtual guy. I like to go out and meet people. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of my business through, the interactions. Just lately, I've been getting into building a team. So some of the recruiting methods, I'm always looking for different types of recruiting methods. So I thought this would be a great avenue to kind of hone my skills maybe a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll go. Hi, my name is Megan Garrity, and I am not able to put my video on. I'm actually working on an older laptop right now because mine is getting worked on, so I don't have a video. But I am the business development manager for Manpower. I have 5 offices now, so South Dayton, Lima, Salina, and Troy. And for me, what I want to get out of this is that, so much of my business in the past has been going out and about, and with COVID, we're doing a lot of that. So just new ways of prospecting and new ideas is kind of what I'm looking for.
Okay, awesome.
I'll go next. I'm Colleen Gilardi, and I'm part owner of Board and Brush in Tip City. We're a DIY creative studio. So people come into our studio and they make, wood signs for their home that are really popular right now. So my goal today is obviously to figure out how to increase bookings for our workshops. Almost all of our marketing right now is done online, Facebook, Instagram, a little bit of email marketing. But just kind of trying to understand, with Facebook changing so much and I don't know, TikTok coming up, and it just seems like everything's pretty hard to keep up with as far as the online arena. So just kind of trying to figure out how to be a little bit smarter with our online marketing, just how to be more targeted and how to basically increase our bookings would be my goal for today. So.
I'll go next. If you can hear me, Tim Taylor.
We can.
You're good, Tim.
Great. Hey, I am a district sales manager for SEW Eurodrive. Our regional office is in Troy, Ohio. I reside in Nebraska and I cover the Nebraska territory. Some of my colleagues are also on the meeting today. I'm really not that digital savvy, so I would love to hear the ideas that are going to be presented today and see how I can implement them in approaching and new customers like original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, to generate interest in our product.
Awesome.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Tim Porter. I also work with Tim Taylor with SEW Eurodrive. I'm based in Colorado and cover quite a number of states in the Western US and kind of have the same concepts that the other Tim does of just trying to understand how to outreach to customers, find prospects, find opportunities. Sort of the gold mining they used to do out here in the West, but it's not all digital. So just looking for more ideas and concepts in that regard.
Hi there, and this is Rich Eckstein, and I'm also work with SEW Eurodrive, colleagues Tim and Tim, and my role is motion control product specialist, and I'm also trying to expand our contacts with new customers and get out and how do we contact them, what's best way to get some results and expanding our business. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Borras. I'm also a district sales manager with SEW Eurodrive. I cover Minnesota and a little bit into Wisconsin, and also just looking for maybe some new ideas and some different things on how to use the media and trying to grow my business.
Good. Great.
This is Walter Sturgeon with SEW Eurodrive. I am the regional sales manager here in Troy, Ohio. I invited all of my team. I'm really happy to see so many of them have signed on here today. Thank you for everyone that has signed on. And my goal for myself and my team is really to take any potential tidbit away that we aren't currently using, any knowledge we might have to help digitally connect to our customers and prospects.
Awesome. Thanks, Walter. Anybody else hasn't went?
Yep, this is Dave Bagaisi speaking, also a district sales manager for SEW Eurodrive, covering Southeast Ohio into Northern West Virginia. And much like my other colleagues have stated so far, we're really trying to find a way to leverage the tools that are available now that probably weren't 5-10 years ago to grow our digital presence and really honestly keep from ending up in the junk folder.
Hi, this is Vincent
Thompson, if you can hear me. All right.
Vincent, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Vincent Saunier. I'm a motion control product specialist for SEW Eurodrive. I'm here to hopefully get rid of some of my biases with social media and branching out and learning more. Always looking to learn new ways to reach out to customers.
Awesome. And who is on the iPhone? Go ahead. All right. We got everybody?
I'll jump in. My name's Pat Ryan. I'm with Metronet Business Fiber. I do a lot of direct marketing via email and looking for better ways to get customers' attention when I contact them, and like everybody else, not end up in the junk folder.
I'm Cathy Vogler. I'm with Expedient Technology Solutions. We're out of Miamisburg. Always been proud to be a Troy Chamber member. It's one of the best chambers around. I wanted to be on this meeting. I actually do our communications, PR, marketing, advertising. There's always something to be learned from every one of these events, and I'm really looking forward to some of the information you'll be sharing that will make our marketing efforts better. Thank you.
Awesome. Is that everybody?
I think
Hello.
so. Or wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Mays. I'm also with the SCW Eurodrive clan, and I'm out of Illinois, and part of Wisconsin is my territory. And just looking for new and innovative ways to build the territory.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll be running through kind of a PowerPoint today to kind of help give you guys a visual. You guys let me know when you can see it.
You are good.
All right, digital prospecting. I'm going to say something right now that is going to probably twist your guys' brains a little bit. I wish there was a secret sauce to all of this. You know, I heard a lot of different comments as you guys were introducing yourselves about, you know, how do we stay out of email jail basically and do all this stuff. In training hundreds of different companies that we work with across the nation and across the world, actually, you know, we still have to remember that we're in this 10% game. You know, sales is how we manage the 10%. We're going to fail 90% of the time in things that we do, but how do we manage that 10%? What's the little things we can do to take that 10% to maybe 11 or 12 or 15%? But we can't have the conceptual mindset around things that, you know, here's going to be something that's going to take us from, you know, 3% to 80% when it comes to, especially when it comes to prospecting. Because prospecting is one of those areas that I think is probably the most dreaded thing that any sales organization or salesperson wants to do. It's just something that most salespeople put off most of the time and put it off until the end of the month for job preservation, not because of something they want to do. So as we dive into digital prospecting today, we're going to dive into prospecting a little bit and how can we get, you know, some of these different alternatives out there on the table, talk about them, the scripts and messaging that I'm going to kind of go through. What are some of the common pitfalls that we're going to walk through together? The difference between, I heard a lot of people talking about marketing and social selling. What's the difference between active prospecting versus passive prospecting? Pre-COVID versus now, what's changed, what's working, what's not. Some of the things in the PowerPoint won't be there that we talk about, and then leveraging the power of introductions and testimonials. So with that said, does cold calling still work? I don't know how many of you guys still go through this, but I've seen a lot of differences over the last 20 years of my career. And if you go back into the 90s and stuff like that, like salespeople had to cold call. And it's a dreaded activity. And now we're seeing a lot of different things happening with social selling and different digital prospecting that cold calling, I'm not going to say it doesn't work. It's just not the preferred method. And it's not the preferred method for a couple of different reasons. One, because I think when it's all said and done, there are all these easier ways to touch people through LinkedIn, through emails, through texting, through, you name it, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of touching and reaching out to people to get that conversation started. Also, when it's all said and done, there's less and less people in the office. There's less and less companies still having access to company phones. So it makes it even harder to cold call somebody when there's less company phones out there and less people are in the office. Because I've tried this, if you get somebody's cell phone number and you're trying to reach out to somebody via cell phone, typically what happens is you're going to get put to voicemail. People don't answer numbers on their cell phone a lot of the times, more often than not, if they don't know who it is. If they're at work and a number is coming through and you get through one of the gatekeepers and you get to that person, typically they're answering the phone. But when it comes to a cell phone, they're not answering that cell phone. Now, in no ways am I saying cold calling still doesn't work. I think it's in part of that recipe that we need to keep working that recipe the right way, especially business to business. If you're business to consumer, you might not be cold calling at all. It might be more of a marketing campaign, more of a passive approach to prospecting. But I do have kind of a rule that I live by as all salespeople, because we have no hypocrisy from this stage at all. Everything that I'm going to go over with you guys today, everything I say, we also do as trainers and coaches. I'm just not a trainer and coach, I'm a salesperson too. So I have to go out here and do all these same things day in and day out and understand what works and what doesn't work. So we live by this kind of motto. If we want to sell something, we have to prospect first. Prospecting earns us the right to sell something. So if we're not prospecting and doing these daily behaviors every day, then chances are our pipelines are going to fill up the right way, or we're not going to get in front of enough people more often and have quality conversations that turn into meetings that eventually turn into new business. So I would say when I take a hard look at any company that I'm working with, or I'm coming in and they're telling me all these different problems they're having with their organization, prospecting is at the top of the list all the time. And it's usually a problem with they don't understand what the goals, actions, and behaviors need to look like in that prospecting realm. They're doing a little bit of prospecting or a lot of prospecting a little bit of the time instead of doing a little bit of prospecting a lot of the time. So that's the fundamental flaw I see right off the bat with people in their prospecting efforts and what they're trying to do. So again, back to that recipe a little bit, back to this stuff, cold calling still works. I'm not here to tell you cold calling doesn't work. I'm here saying it needs to be in there at different times. But we're here to talk a little bit more about digital prospecting and what that is. So anybody can take themselves off mute. I want to know, maybe when you think of digital prospecting, what are some of those alternatives to cold calling that maybe we think of digital prospecting in? You guys can also throw them in chat if you want to.
Well, I personally do a lot of emails, so it's not cold calls, it's cold emails. I will scour Facebook and company websites to try to find email addresses and contacts for people who are, in charge of sales or marketing for a company, and then email them with, hey, this is we have some rates for newspaper, print, and digital advertising. So I think the majority of what I do is cold emails, I guess.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, I would say a lot of what I do is LinkedIn. So I try to connect with current customers or prospective customers and then share content on LinkedIn to pique interest, to have those touch points to where perhaps they will reach out to us. Otherwise, also, since I'm connected to their LinkedIn, I see stuff that they're posting. So then I can share something of interest to my team and perhaps have them reach out to the customer directly. That is probably the main part of digital prospecting that I do.
Awesome. And those two things, so we're going to dive into it. I think that's, from what I'm seeing right now from a digital side, we're not going to talk about one of these, but the two that I see the most often are emails or the use of some social media platform. Whether it's, LinkedIn is by and far from a business side the biggest. I think there's last time I checked, there's over 600 million users on LinkedIn. It is the platform everybody needs to be on from a business to business side. And we're going to dive into that a little bit later, but that's where everybody needs to be. Now, if you're more business to consumer, you might be more Twitter, you might be more Instagram or Facebook, especially if it has pictures and different things that you want to put on there that are more generated. But, the 5 top ones out there are LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Those are the 5 big media platforms right now that are driving more of the attention. And I know they're what's the other one that's out there? Brain fart. But the other one that's out there that's coming up is one where everybody posts the videos. I can't think of it all. TikTok, thank you. You know, TikTok's coming too. It just isn't in those top 5 yet as far as what people are doing to advertise their business or market or sell. So with that said, you know, do we have effective email scripts that need to go out? Or do we have effective email messaging that needs to go out on LinkedIn? And a lot of the times what I'm seeing is we maybe have those scripts or maybe we don't have those scripts. And I'm going to use a term here that sometimes we're emotional in our approach to prospecting, like, okay, let's start winging it and start writing a message to somebody and putting it out there, instead of having a scripted message that needs to go out there. And I hear this all the time too, like, well, we don't want it to sound scripted. Well, it only sounds scripted when you first start doing it. After you do it for a few times and you get that message dialed in, then the message isn't scripted. But you have to have scripts that are going out in a very deliberate, systematic way that you're trying to touch base with some of these things. If they're not systematic and you're not touching on some of these different points that we're going to go over as I read through some of these to give you guys some examples, then we're missing it. Other pitfall I also see is we tend to start pitching our products and services in those emails instead of trying to point out different pain points in our scripting that are for their industry, not about us. And I'll walk through that as I walk through one of these scripts. I also see, let me pause here a second too. What I also see is another pitfall is the cadence and how these things go out. So pitfall 1 is we don't have a systematic process. We don't have scripts. Pitfall number 2 is we don't have a cadence that we send out. Too often I see people go, when's the last time you reached out to them? Or how many times this week did you reach out to them? I reached out to them 3 times. If you're reaching out to somebody and sending messages out 3 times in a week, it screams salesperson and it screams desperate. We need to change that up in our approach because we don't want to sound like a salesperson. One of our rules is if we smell like one, we look like one, we act like one, we talk like one, we probably are one. And we're trying to act like a salesperson, but still be that salesperson. So in your messaging, if it's all about you and all about pitching and products and services, they're going to smell that 100 miles away and they're going to go, you know, salesperson, and it's going to go on deaf ears. So here's, for an example, cadence wise, I'll give you guys a tidbit on cadence. My cadence for emails, especially, or things on LinkedIn messaging or Facebook messaging, I send an email out every 2 weeks. So it starts with, if looking at this cold email, this would be the cold email that I would send out the first time. And this is just an example of one. This is a long-winded version that I'm giving you guys an example. Understand that I can't send this PowerPoint out to you, but if you want to screenshot this or go look back and look at it and type it all out, I have no problem with that. But I'm going to read out this script real quick. I want to hear what you guys are hearing in this script and see if you're noticing any different things. Hi, Jim. My name is Jason Reynolds with Sandler Training at the Ruby Group. I'm guessing you never heard of me or my company before, but we've been working with other companies in a similar space and size of yours, so I thought I'd reach out. Companies that we work with typically come to us in at least one of 3 areas. CEOs tell us they're frustrated with their team's ability to get enough opportunities in the pipeline or on the front end through prospecting efforts. Either the people don't know how to do it, don't know the right activities to do, or they don't know how to leverage LinkedIn for selling purposes. Leaders express concerns around their team investing a lot of time, money, and energy spent sending out quotes, but not enough time pre-qualifying on the front end because salespeople think quoting is selling and it's not. There's a feeling of worry from leadership as to what their people are doing all day to drive their business with no accountability with the culture or the sales organization. It would be disrespectful of me to presume that you have similar challenge without understanding more about your business, but I thought I'd reach out to see if you'd be open to a conversation. I look forward to hearing either way. Jason. Anything stick out there for you guys?
It's the thing that immediately sticks out to me right up front, and I couldn't get past it, to be honest with you. It's generic, not personalized. So when we say in a similar space and size to yours, that's a turn off immediately for me.
Yep. So I'll give you the statistic of how often this email gets responded to. This one right here gets responded to 3% of the time when this is sent out, when that language is in there. When I personalize that exact thing that you brought up, but we work with other companies in similar space and size of yours. When I get that personalized, when I've done research enough to go, now I know something personal about him, her, or whoever I'm reaching out to, that instantly jumps to this email gets opened 11% of the time. So I'm glad you said that and glad you picked that out, because that's big. We have to personalize this stuff. This is just a template to get things rolling. And then you got to figure out where in this email are you going to personalize or bring something up that's more personal. Anything else?
I think it's pretty wordy. I would be turned off with the length of the email.
So depending on your personality profile and who I'm reaching out to, right? This would be. But this is a common script to kind of give us some different things that are going on. One, the first part of it's an intro. It's just introducing who I am and who I'm with. The middle part of it is what we call pain statements. And we're going over similar 3 different pain points that we're going to work with company. We're trying to hit that 90% of what these companies that we're selling out to are having issues with.
The other thing that I see is that, and again, this is just for me personally, is it's too common of an email.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't set me apart from anyone else if I send this email. I've seen this email hundreds of other times from people that are prospecting me. So I need something more unique, more original.
So there's different ways to do that as we're talking through all this stuff, right? Your subject line is key in how we personalize or how we make this different. To how we personalize it is also something. Somebody have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, the end, but I thought it was worth reaching out, see if you were open to a conversation. It's just so, I don't know. For me, I would go into it, assuming that it's worth talking to me and we should be having that conversation. Just
So
seems a little like you're just kind of dancing around it.
Well, I think sometimes, yeah. So not really dancing around it. I think that's a technique that is often used, that we're sometimes throwing a different pattern interrupt in there, saying something that's not always in our best interest. So they feel a little less guarded, because I really don't know whether it's worth a conversation or not. You do, but you don't. You don't ever want to presume that somebody, it's worth the conversation, because they're going to fight you on that and go, well, he or she doesn't know if it is or not. So that comment's in there to kind of just change a little pattern interrupt to get them to answer whether they think it's worth it or not me.
A quick observation that I have, I like that you mention leveraging LinkedIn, but that's really the only item that you mentioned there. And I believe that there's other digital sources or resources available. So that kind of pigeonholes you right there.
Right. Guys, these are just examples of this stuff too. Let me tell you that I've probably got 60 of these, depending on the industry that I'm reaching out to. Like, the key things you have to do is what industry you're reaching out to, who in the company you're reaching out to, and what are their biggest. So I take people through the top 10, pain points that a company might have. So I'm going to go through and go, if I'm reaching out to a logistics and transportation industry, this stuff is going to be geared towards, in that language, towards that logistics and transportation company and their 10 biggest pain points. And I'm going to pick out what I think are the 3 biggest pain points in there and put them in that language. So this is just to kind of give you a script to kind of go, okay, now here's the breakdown of this script. We got the intro, we got pain points, and we have the hook question at the end. Those are the three things in there. The other things is I'm throwing out different words. So if you look at those pain points, when we start talking through, how do we get somebody's attention most of the time? When we start going, what's your product or service and what you're selling? What separates you from the competition? A lot of the times I hear from an intellectual side, it could be, well, it's service, it's quality, it's price. You name 5 or 6 other things you could throw in there, right? But are those words intellectual in nature or emotional in nature? they're intellectual in nature. So how do we turn some of those words from an intellectual nature basis into an emotional basis? People buy from an emotional ego state. They do not buy from an intellectual ego state. They justify in an intellectual ego state, but they do not buy intellectually, they buy emotionally. And it's our job, prospecting is, we're just trying to gain curiosity, interest, and arousal to do what? Get a conversation. And we have to do that through either pain-based statements or positive benefits-based statements. So we could change the script of this stuff around and change it completely around and go more benefits-based. And then if it's benefits-based, you got to third-party story these things out and use testimonials and third-party stories, not pitch what you guys do, but pitch potentially what companies that you work with do and what they say about you and how you do it. So there's much bigger, broader way of looking at this if we had time to dig into it, but we don't. Any other thoughts or questions about that one? All right, I'll move on to 2. So after 2 weeks, we went 2 weeks, I haven't gotten a response. The second email, cold email I'm going to send out is just this. Hi, Jim, I sent you a note a few weeks ago and have not heard back. I appreciate if you'd be kind enough to reply either way. You're just touching base. Any thoughts on that? Anybody got what we think the open rate or the response rate is to that? So like I said on the first one, if it's personalized, our response rate through thousands of emails that we've sent out as an organization is 11%. The response rate on this one's 15%.
I like that it's shorter, but then you don't know what it is unless you read the note below. So I kind of feel like it should have something in there of what the initial reasoning for you reaching out was.
I think what you're doing here is you're telling the prospect that it's okay to tell you no. So let's close that door and move on. That's the most important thing I see with this email.
That's part of it, right? We're giving him that option to say no, because what do we get stuck in sometimes? We start chasing the wrong prospects way too often at the time. We start sending out too many emails and keep going. But really, to gain equal business stature and to gain rapport, giving him the option to say no takes the pressure off of him. And part of that does that. And honestly, we're just asking them to follow up on the email before. In my systematic process, I send everything out of CRM that will copy the first email out, and this will go right with it. So they'll see that email again below this one.
It may key them to go back and look at the previous email, and then it could go either way. It could be positive or negative. But yeah, I agree with the comment earlier. You're giving him a chance just to say no.
And I think this is, again, what we talked about in the first one. Having our subject lines a little different is still key. So that first one might be an intro, or it might be something that you're just going to throw out there, maybe something in your industry that's happening right now that you want to throw in that subject line. This one's just, following back or circling back, following up is too typically I just put on there. And that kind of, they start to look at that and go, oh, okay, let me look at the email before. All right, down to the cold email number 3. Hi, Jim. This is Jason Reynolds, Sandler Training, the Ruby Group. I've sent you a few messages and haven't heard back. I'm getting the feeling you have 0% interest in learning more about what we do or how we do it. And you're just being too polite to tell me that. If that's the case, I get it. We're not for everyone. If you could confirm my suspicions, I will not bother you further. Thanks.
Okay, so I see this email a decent amount, and I absolutely hate this email. I just absolutely hate this. This is one that's it's a bit combative. It's, man, you can't even take the time to message me. You can't even take the time to respond. Sorry for wasting your time. I hate this email, but I see it all the time.
Now, again, this is scripted, right? You've got to change this up and personalize it a little bit more. You can't leave it scripted out there like that, or you will get that. Because Anybody want to guess the response rates or the response rates back to this one?
2% and they're negative.
This is a this is a block me message.
Okay. Response rates 2%. Is that what we
Yeah, I
got?
kind of agree with that too. Usually by now I've blocked the person because first off, they didn't ask me. I didn't ask them to start communicating with me. And then I haven't responded for a reason is how I feel about it. But I am curious as to why from the beginning you haven't included like a link to schedule a meeting with yourself, or some other link to the website or to information so that you could begin tracking any interest before you send out the second email.
So remember what we're saying here, guys. This is all cold emails, just like cold phone calls. So we're going fast. If this is just you sending out cold emails, I'm not sitting here saying I'm a fan of all this stuff. I'm not. Like, cold emails are going to get you, they're at a higher response rate than cold calls right now, but it's still not what I would be doing. Some of this has to be done, but it has to be personalized in a different way. And I'm agreeing with everything everybody's saying because you guys are all right. Like, I don't like this either, and I don't send it out this way. But if you do send it out this way, we now get a 33%, almost 34% return rate on this email. If it's personalized, we get a 70% return rate on this email. So we've got to change it up a little bit and make it more personable, is my point to all this. It can't be cold. It can't be scripted and thrown out there like this.
You say you get a big response, but how much of it is negative?
I tell you what, I've not yet had anybody say to me, don't ever contact me again. I haven't had it. They're just like, right now, this isn't a fit. Okay. And I open up a conversation. Appreciate you getting back to me. I understand we're not for everybody. You want me to kick this can down the road 3 months, 6 months? How would you go? I'll just circle back with us in 6 months. Got it. Perfect. Next. I've earned more business from not cold emails, but from the third email versus the first email. But it has to be changed up and it has to be personalized different. And again, this is not a full approach. This is one more digital approach from a cold email standpoint to throw in with what we're talking about and cold calls also, because we're seeing response rates much higher with emails than we are cold calls. I find a lot of the time salespeople are sitting here going, well, we like to get on the phone more because we get our emotional needs met because somebody potentially picked up the phone, we talked to somebody. Where sending an email out and not getting a response drives people conceptually nuts. Like, they just don't like it. Like, oh, I got to send all these out and just wait and just sit and wait. Well, that's part of the prospecting process. There is that algorithm, or what we call a cookbook. You know, what does all that recipe look like? This is part of the recipe. It's not the full recipe though.
What about if you followed up with a phone call? I mean, I will do cold emails, and I guess it kind of depends on the customer, but maybe after the second email, I'll just call and say, hey, just wanted to check to see if you got my email and see if you had any interest, and then they can just tell you right then and there, and you wouldn't have to wait.
Love it. So typically what I do, if I'm going to do a lot of email prospecting that way or changing it up that way, if I haven't got a response after the third email, I'm picking up the phone and trying to call them. Or I'm going to move to like the things we're going to talk about. Most of my stuff is not done with emails anymore. I do it with video messaging, with types of scripts and types of language that I talked about in some of these emails, but it's personalized and it's set a little bit different. This is scripting to kind of give you guys a script and go, okay, how are you going to personalize it? How are you going to make it better in your world and make it adaptive to the people you're reaching out to? And then there's two different types of prospecting, active and passive. So anyone want to take a guess of what we're talking about when we're talking active prospecting versus passive prospecting? So some of those cold emails we just went through could be a very passive prospecting activity that somebody in the organization, maybe not the actual direct sales rep, is sending out. Maybe it's more marketing type of information like that that people are sending out more passively, sending out hundreds or thousands of those things a month to get a response, more of a marketing campaign. The active side is what we typically see is more of that due diligence done from, we've done research on the company, we've done research on that person, we've personalized it, we've figured out more about, let's target in on that person we're trying to go after, instead of just blank sending emails like they're a marketing campaign out. And there's a big difference between being active in that process versus passive in that process and just doing it. But I find that most organizations are doing a little bit of both and need to do a little bit of both. But salespeople's time is not worth, you know, we try to kick people to saying, if you're going to do passive prospecting, turn that over to somebody else, because the salesperson's most important job is to sell something, get in front of people and get those meetings done, not just spend their whole day prospecting, especially if it's passively. Emails throughout the selling process, emails before and after the meeting, upfront contracts and how we put things in there. We have a term, kind of our little technique and buzzword that we use in upfront contracts, and you know, how do we send those out in the emails, especially after we kind of get to a position where we're talking to somebody. Upfront contracts is probably one of the great things that we kind of do and help teach people how to actually implement in not just the emailing process, but in the conversational process. Upfront contracts have 5 different little things to them: purpose, the time, the prospect's agenda, your agenda, and what the outcomes are going to look like. And what if it's a no? If they give us a no, does that mean it's a no forever or just a no for now? Too many times I see people going, well, I got a no from this guy. Okay, what's your systematic process for going back to it? Like I said, we're in a game of dealing with the 10%. We're going to fail 90% of the time, and we got to figure out conceptually how to be okay with that. So if it's a no, it's just a no for now. And back to the cadence, I always wait 90 days after I get told no, or it's not a fit right now. I wait 90 days before I reach out to entertain any type of conversation. Now I leave it open to them. They can always come back to me and talk to me. But that's typically my cadence if I get a no. Any questions on that stuff? Then we get into messaging prior to sending proposals. I'm not going to continue to bore you guys and read through all this stuff, but the point being is we're trying to develop some different scripting and different habits in every phase of the selling process, not just prospecting. Like, this is now, okay, we've had a meeting. What should our scripting, what should some of this stuff sound like right before we're going to send out a proposal? Some different scripting and messaging, whether it's LinkedIn, emails, you name it, it doesn't matter. What happens when the buyer's in WPP? And that means the witness protection program in an email, because we've all had those. They disappear on us, and what do we do now? How do we get them to answer us back? What do we do with that? And I'll let you guys kind of take and read some of this before I just keep skipping down through it. Asking for referrals, or what I like to call introductions. I'm a big fan of using the word introductions and not referrals. I've seen that the use of the word referrals puts a lot of pressure on people, like they have to vouch for you for something. And asking for people to introduce you to people seems to be a much, much better practice and just a softer approach to talking with people about introductions. But there are 5 steps that we talk about when it comes to referrals on social media. You know, we have to develop a comprehensive list of people that, you know, that are raving fans of ours, or just a comprehensive list of people we might know. And there's no better place to do that right now than LinkedIn. Like, most of us have built up hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we have become associated with on LinkedIn. I had a business mentor a few years ago tell me, he goes, Jason, I think it always was that 6 degrees of separation out there, but because of the internet, especially LinkedIn, there's like 5 degrees of separation between all of us now. Like, you can go 5 levels deep and touch everybody. And we find this to be a much, much better practice, trying to find intros into people and figuring out who people know, going through LinkedIn or finding intros, people to intro you, than doing cold emails or cold phone calls. Create the templates. We got to go through that same thing. How are we going to create templates that say, here's the email scripting, or here's the words that we're going to use in asking for those introductions with people? Are you identifying and tracking? You know, we use a CRM to track all this stuff and say, okay, when are we going to follow up with this person again? How do we follow up with this person? Who's the company we're looking to get introduced to, and ask for that introduction? So we have to identify, track, organize, and track all this data as far as, are we doing that on a routine basis? We could have a bad week prospecting, but we can't have a bad month. So we look at our prospecting efforts on a monthly basis. What do those activities look like? How many dials meaning how many of these intros are we asking for? How many cold calls are we sending out? How many emails are we sending out? How many networking events are we going to, you know, et cetera? What does that dials the conversations rate look like?
You know, I just want to say, I think that's probably one of the wisest things that anyone can adopt, is to track your metrics. You know, we can't make assumptions. We can't say, well, this is how I've always done it. We have to know, does it take 100 new people going into the top of my funnel before I actually close a job? You have to understand what are the actual physical metrics of what it needs to do to make you successful. You know, and that's continually dumping things in all the time, from the top of the funnel all the way down to your meetings, and tracking those. So I love that you're adding this. It's something people say, I don't really need to do, but it's really important.
You know, during our training sessions and stuff with other companies, we spend probably an hour and a half just talking about that conversation in general, because it is the thing that separates great companies from mediocre companies. When you start tracking that stuff, and I know there's always that fear, well, we're big brothering this stuff now, and we're having to do all these things, and it's all conceptual BS.
My favorite from the salespeople is, I spend more time putting the stuff in the system than actually I can't get the work done. But once they realize the benefit to having this in a system and to seeing the numbers, to say like, okay, this is actually the client who's responding to us to this message more often than any other, and you can focus on things. So it is really beneficial for them.
And it takes some time. I mean, developing a prospecting plan, developing all those different metrics you want to go, it usually takes every company that I start working with at least 3 months because they might not be collecting all that data now. And then after 3 months, they're going, okay, now we got a good data set to go by. What's working, what's not working? Now, how do we every month just tweak it, or every 3 months tweak it? Too many companies start to get into it and go, they got into it a month ago, see, this stuff didn't work. But after about 3 or 6 months, all of a sudden it starts to really work. And I've saw companies like take leaps and bounds in 3 months with their prospecting efforts and go, all of a sudden they're like, why is revenue up? Why are we closing more business? Well, now we really understand what was happening there. We've got twice the amount of activities going through the pipeline that we had before, just with a little bit of concentrated effort on it. Writing and receiving testimonials in the digital age. This is a big one, and I can tell you right now, I haven't been the greatest at this myself. But on LinkedIn, there are places to do these things, and it gets you noticed. And this is, you know, LinkedIn and all these little activities. This is where I feel like I get some pushback from sales reps going, wait a minute, I got to do dials, I got to do emails. Now you want me to go to LinkedIn and do write and receive testimonials and put things on and create this profile. And I'm telling you, there is so many things now to do, but when it comes to stuff like this, writing and receiving testimonials or posting on somebody's page, it's almost like that old fuzzy file type thing that we just have to do. You know, somebody likes golf, so you used to send them a magazine on golf or an article on golf. Well, now you can do it on LinkedIn and send them some of this fuzzy file stuff and keep in touch with them on a better basis to build that relationship. These things go a long way in getting good feedback both directions from writing and receiving testimonials. And I just got some, you know, you guys can, there's just some that we put on here, and from a script standpoint, so if you want to screenshot that, you can. You know, there's just some scripts that we put out there too to kind of change around and help people write testimonials for us and vice versa. Asking for introductions through LinkedIn. We kind of started mentioning that and talking about that. And that's, you know, that's my go-to thing, is to research and go to LinkedIn and find out who I'm connections with, who's cold, who's not, and then go through their list and try to figure out who's raving fans of mine, who's not, and who'd be willing to intro me into other people. And there's different email scripts that we give out to help that process along too. So I know we're coming up on time, and I kind of scanned through a little bit of that as we got into a deep conversation, but lessons learned today. If I missed something, I apologize, but we're really trying to develop what is the prospecting strategy we're trying to go through from a scripting standpoint, from an email standpoint, from how we deal with LinkedIn, how we deal with video messaging that's big out there too. And I didn't mention that before, but a lot more people are doing a lot more video messaging, sending those things through LinkedIn, sending those things through emails. It's a better way to communicate with people. Do you have structure and scripts in your strategy? Are you using both active and passive methods? What have you changed up since the environment's changed? Are we leveraging the power of those intros and referrals and testimonials and the fuzzy files that we've been talking about? Or are we becoming a better systematic processor and not an emotional one? Emotional prospectors do it when they feel like doing it. But building a systematic process, time blocking, and saying, hey, I'm going to put an hour and a half on my schedule every single day just to prospect and put more on my funnel. Is that being done? With that said, my email's on here, guys. Appreciate any feedback you guys can give me, goods and bads. If you got questions about scripts, you want me to share some more with you guys offline, I can do that. If you send me a note, I would appreciate it. I'll open it up now. We got a few more minutes for questions on anything sales related, anything prospect related we can talk about.